Welcome back to the channel. Today we are diving into a dynamic and virtual stunning UI animation made specifically for shorts. It all kicks off with a cinematic spaceship lift off. UI blocks bounce in and shift, shrinks into a ping loading icon, a white flash wipes in, and a clean title appears. In this video, I will guide you through building the entire animation from scratch. Smooth motion, clean composition, and how to pick the right colors, create beautiful gradients, and place them for maximum visual impact, all coming together into a high-end, eye-catching sequence. Whatever you are a complete beginner or already experienced with animation, this tutorial is designed to level up your skills. Project files and assets are available to download, link in the description. With that being said, let's get started. Let's start by creating a new composition with a width of 1080 and a height of 9020. Next, create a new solid, apply a 4-color gradient effect, and move the green and the blue points toward the center. Change the first color to dark purple, then use the eyedropper tool to sample the same color from the other 3 points. Now slightly renaming the 3 colors to different shades of dark purple so the background has a rich and deep purple tone. Set the blend value to 200, import the spaceship icon, scale it down to 50% and enable the 3D layer for it. Move the playhead to 1.5 seconds, set a position keyframe, go back to the beginning of the timeline, and set the Z position to 1500, moving the spaceship behind the composition. Then, move forward to 3.5 seconds, set the Z position to -500, and animate the spaceship upward until it exits the top of the frame. Right-click on the position and select Separate Dimensions. Open the graph editor, right-click inside and switch to Value Edit Graph. Select all keyframes, drag them fully outward to both sides to stretch the graph, and create a slight slope. This will give the animation a smooth curved motion path, and if you looked closely at the graph, you will notice a gentle arc that makes the movement feel natural. Now I want to show you where I got the colors I use in the animation. We will need to pick one now for the next part of the animation. Let's go to Pinterest and type in gradient colors in the search bar. We will get a lot of results, and each of those can be a great source for design inspired or building a beautiful high quality animations. We will be looking for a color combination similar to this one or this one. For example, using the pen tool, we will draw trail shape that comes out exactly from the back of the spaceship. Change the fill to gradient fill and add 5 color tones. Set the second stop to 25%, the third at 50%, and the fourth at 75%. Now choose the colors you want for the gradient. I include all the gradient color codes I use in this video in the project files. Then, using the 2 gradients direction handles, adjust the angle and the spread of the gradients to get the look that feels right to you. Add a wave warp effect to the shape layer. Set the wave width to 100, change the direction to 180 degrees, and set the wave speed to 3. Then parent the shape layer to the spaceship icon. Next, add a path keyframe to the shape layer, go a bit backward in the timeline, and adjust the top-bottom points of the shape inward toward the center. Move that keyframe to beginning of the comb to animate the trail expanding outward. Now let's create the closing animation for the spaceship's color trail. Now let's move on to the part where the spaceship launches forward. First, stretch the shape layer to both sides of the screen. Move forward 1 frame, and using the pen tool, add the 2 points at the bottom edge of the shape. This allowed us to pull the bottom slightly upward. Move 1 more frame, and raise those points a bit higher. Then move forward 2 more frames, and pull the points even higher so the color covers almost the entire screen. After another 2 frames, push the points all the way to the top of the screen. Finally, move 2 frames ahead and drag the top corner points outward, each to the opposite sides. Then close the shape completely by connecting the higher points filling the screen. If at any point the bottom edge of the shape starts to peeking into the frame, that's fine. Just pull those bottom points down to make sure the shape covers the entire screen. Now, duplicate the shape layer, go into the gradient field of the duplicated layer and change it to 4 color stops. Set the second stop to 33% and the third at 66% and assign a different color palette to this layer. Again, I will include all the color codes I used in the project files. In the scale setting, turn off the construct properties and reduce the height to 125. Duplicate the shape layer again. Go into the gradient fill of the new duplicate and change the colors to a different set. Then go into the scale and reduce the height to 50. Now go to the final path keyframe and on the two lower shape layers set opacity keyframes. Bring the opacity down to 0%, move back a few frames and set it back to 100%. At the same point, add a scale keyframe to the top shape layer, move to the last keyframe and increase the scale to 200%. So the top colors fully covers the screen. Go back to the first keyframe and add the wave height keyframe. Then move to the last keyframes and reduce the wave height to 0, which will flat the edges of the shape. Copy those wave height keyframes and paste them onto the two lower shapes layers. Inside the gradient field, create a color keyframe. Move to the final keyframes and change all the gradient colors to much darker tones. This creates a smooth background transition for the next screen. Add an adjustment layer to the comp, apply a curves effect to the adjustment layer, and lower the curve slightly to distort the colors. Next, add a glow effect, increase the glow radius so the glow spread across the screen, lower the glow intensity to 0.8 and reduce the opacity of the adjustment layer to 15%. Copy the curves and the glow effect and paste them onto the spaceship icon layer. Reduce the curves effect slightly there and tweak the glow setting to make the spaceship glow and stand out. When the entire screen filled with the color, add opacity keyframes to the adjustment layer, move forward a few frames and reduce the opacity to 0%. Duplicate the spaceship icon layer, turn the tree shapes layer to the duplicate spaceship icon layer, select all layers except the original spaceship icon and the background, then pre-compose them. Inside the pre-compose, turn off the visibility of the spaceship icon. Back in the main comp, duplicate the pre-comp layer controlling the spaceship color trails, apply the Find Edges effect to the duplicate, enable invert, raise blend with original to 80% and change the layer's blend mode to overlay. This creates a second layer of the color edges, adding a lot of depth and polish to the video. Open the color comp, navigate the last opacity keyframe of the adjustment layer. At the same point in the main comp, add opacity keyframe to the duplicate comp layer. Move forward a few frames and reduce the opacity to 0%. Then shift the duplicate comp layer 1 frame forward to create a subtle uneven delay effect. Create a white star shape and reduce the point to 4. Adjust the setting until you get the perfect start shape. Set the start rotation to be straight and scale it down to relatively small size. At 0.75 seconds, add a scale keyframe. Go back to the start and set the scale to 0%. Move forward 1.5 seconds and set the scale back to 0% again. Open the graph editor and make the first keyframe have a sharp easy in and the second keyframe sharp easy out. Add a glow effect and increase the glow radius. Duplicate the start layer, move it forward in the timeline and reposition the star to another spot on the screen. Repeat this process several times until the last star ends as the color spread across the screen. Select all the stars layers and move them below so they appear behind the spaceship. Now let's create animation of rectangle that's coming after the spaceship's animation. Create a medium-sized rectangle at the bottom of the screen. I've already colored it using the same colors I showed you earlier, which I of course included in the project files. Center the anchor points, set the roundness to 40 and adjust the gradient position to look smooth. At half a second before the animation ends, add a position, scale and rotation keyframes. Go back slightly before the animation ends, move the rectangle down, scale it to 50% and rotate it to -10 degrees. Open the graph editor, switch to Edit Value Graph and separate the dimension for the position. Lower the X position keyframe values, stretch the start of the X position graph upward and the end downward. Select the scale and the rotation graphs, slightly lower the start points and raise their endpoints. Trim the part of the layer before the keyframes. Duplicate the rectangle layer and shift it so the first keyframe starts slightly after the middle point of the first rectangle's keyframes. Shortly after the duplicate rectangle last keyframes, bring the first rectangle above the second and add a rotation keyframe to it. Open the graph editor. In the position, stretch the graph's end downward and sideways. Switch to rotation. Although the values haven't changed, we'll do something different. Lower the end of the rotation graph to create the invert heel shape. The current size is when you're standing on the middle of the inverted heel, you are at above -7 degrees. Duplicate the second rectangle layer and shift it forward by the same amount as before. Then repeat the same steps, bring the second rectangle up to the first rectangle's position and add a rotation keyframe to it. The position and rotation graph like last time, and note the keyframes forward slightly because they were placed too early. Bring the first rectangle above the second rectangle and add the rotation keyframes. Open the graph editor, adjust the position as usual, and for the rotation, do the option curve. Create a heel shape where the center is at 7 degrees. Duplicate the layer one last time and shift the duplicate forward by the same amount as before. Shortly after the keyframes, move the third icon above outside the comp and add a rotation keyframe. In the graph editor, stretch the start position graph for smooth flow, and for rotation create an invert heel with the center at -7 degrees. Also, move the second rectangle above outside the comp and add the rotation keyframe. In the graph editor, stretch the start of the point graph for smooth movement and create a heel for rotation with a center of 7 degrees. Move the rectangle above outside the comp and add a rotation keyframe. In the graph editor, stretch the start of the point graph for a smooth movement and create an invert heel for a rotation with the center at -7 degrees. On the fourth rectangle layer, at the last keyframes, move it to the center of the screen and shift the layer slightly forward in time. Move the last keyframes of the second rectangle 2 frames earlier and the last keyframes of the first rectangle 4 frames earlier. Now change the colors of the second, third and fourth rectangle to different shades, and of course I will include them in the project files. While I'm doing this, if you like this tutorial, subscribe for more high-level motion design tips. Add a glow effect to one of the rectangle layers, lower the glow treasure to 25%, increase the glow radius to 200 and reduce the glow intensity to 0.2. Change the glow colors to AB colors and set the B to white. Copy the glow effect and paste onto the other rectangle layers. Duplicate the first rectangle layer, go to the last scale keyframe, unlink the proportions and increase the scale so the glow appears around it. Set the opacity to 2, change the glow colors to original colors, and increase the glow intensity to 0.9. Add the Gaussian blur effect and set the blurriness to 90. Copy the glow and the Gaussian blur effect, duplicate the second rectangle, remove its exacting glow effect, and paste the copy glow and Gaussian blur effects. Go to the last scale keyframe of the second rectangle layer, copy the last scale keyframe of the layer beneath the first rectangle, paste it, and set opacity to 2%. Repeat this process for the last 2 rectangle layers. What it does is create a nice glowing effect beneath each rectangle, adding a lot of depth to the shape. Move to the last keyframes of the first rectangle, add opacity keyframe to the first 3 rectangles and their respective glow layers behind them. Move a few frames forward and reduce the opacity to 0%. Add the inner shadow to the first rectangle layer. In the inner shadow settings, increase the size to 40 and lower the opacity to 30%. Copy the inner shadow effect and paste it onto the other rectangles. Move to the second keyframe of the first rectangle, add a text layer, type knowledge, and scale it up to 250%. Position the text in the center of the rectangle, add a gradient ramp effect to the text, place the start point above the text and the end points at the bottom of the text. Adjust the points so the gradient lines are parallel. Then click Swap Colors. Using the eyedropper tool, sample the light color from the rectangle for the endpoint color. Add a drop shadow to the text. In the drop shadow settings, increase the size to 30 and reduce the opacity to 20%. Turn the text layer to the rectangle behind it and move the text layer above the rectangle layer. Go back to the start of the rectangle layer, trim and delete the text layer segment before that point. Add a glow effect to the text layer, change the glow colors to AB colors, and set the B color to white. Increase the glow radius to 135, duplicate the text layer, unpierce it, Remove any parenting and move this duplicate above the corresponding rectangle layer. Move the second keyframe of the second rectangle and parent the duplicate text to the rectangle. Change the text to the word tools and center it within the rectangle. Change the endpoint color of the text gradient ramp to match the color of the rectangle behind it. Duplicate this text layer again, unparent it, and move it above the third rectangle layer. Move the middle keyframes of the third rectangle, change the text to impact, center it, and parent it to the rectangle. Using the eyedropper tool, change the end color of the word impact to the middle color of the rectangle. Now, repeat this process for all the words. Duplicate the text layer, unparent it, and move it above the last rectangle layer. Move the last keyframes of the last rectangle and parent the text to it. Move the text up and center it inside the rectangle. Change the text to creativity and center it again. Move the gradient ramp points so they are positioned above and below the text. Change the gradient colors using the eyedropper tool to match the rectangle colors below the word. Go to the start of the text layer and create a scale keyframe for the word knowledge. Setting the scale to 0%, move a few frames forward and reduce the scale to its original size. Add the bouncing expression by holding Alt and clicking on the stopwatch for scale. Set the AMP to 0.06. Copy the keyframes and paste them onto the other text layers exactly at the times their layers start. Move to the last keyframes of the last rectangle and add the X position keyframe. Move few frames forward, turn on the constraint properties and scale it down to small square shape. Move the rectangle slightly to the right, paste the expression on the X position and set the AMP to 0.1. Go back to the middle keyframes and cut the layer at that point. Also, paste the expression on the scale, parent the text layer to the rectangle, parent the glow rectangle layer underneath to the rectangle as well. Create a color keyframe for the rectangle, move to the rectangle scale keyframes, open the gradient and change the colors to pink-purple tones. This is another base I brought from Pinterest. Create an opacity keyframe on the text layer and set it to 0%. Move a few frames backward and set the opacity back to 100%. On the glow rectangle layer, create color keyframe. Move this color keyframe to start at the rectangle's middle keyframe. Go to the rectangle's last keyframes and change the color to match the rectangle's colors. Go back to the start of the rectangle layer and create a glow intensity keyframe. Return to the rectangle's last keyframes and increase the glow intensity to 0.5. Now, let's create the rounding animation. Using the shape tool, create a circle with a white stroke that is size 10. Center the anchor point, duplicate the layer. On the duplicate, create a mask around the circle. This is necessary to animate the fill inside turning white. Lower the opacity of the first circle to 40%. On the top circle, add a trim path at the current time. In the trim path setting, lower the end to 0% and create a keyframe. Move to the moment when the rectangle stops moving. Increase the end to 100% to create a rounding animation for the circle. Move the last keyframe forward slightly to slow down the animation. In the graph editor, right-click and switch to Edit Speed Graph. Then create a shape Easy Out. Go back to the first keyframe. Inside the circle, create a short white line. Set the stroke to 8 and center the anchor point. In the stroke setting, change the line cap to round cap to create a rounded edges. Duplicate the line, move the duplicate slightly to the left and position both line center on the circle. Parent the circles and the line to the rectangle. Go to the last keyframes of the rectangle, create opacity keyframes. For the circles, move back a few frames and set the opacity to 0%. At the rectangle's last keyframes, create a rotation keyframes for the lines. Move 5 frames back and set the rotation to -20 degrees. Paste the expression, set the AMP to 0.1, then copy and paste the same expression onto the second line. Create opacity keyframes, set to 0%, then a few frames forward, raise back to 100%. Move to the circle's last end keyframes, create rotation keyframes for both lines. 5 frames forward, rotate the first line 50 degrees and the second line 30 degrees.
Move back a few frames, create the opacity keyframes, move forward a bit and set the opacity to 0%. Move back to the moment when the circle is almost full rounded. Create a wide keyframe on the duplicate circle. Move to the last rotation keyframes of the lines. Increase the width until the entire circle is filled. Go to a graph editor and adjust for a smoother, faster transition. Shift the keyframe slightly after the line disappears. Using the pen tool, create a V shape in the center of the circle. Center the anchor point. In the stroke setting, change the line cap to rounded cap and the line join to round join to create a rounded edges. Change the stroke to linear gradient. Sample the first color from the left side of the rectangle and set the second color from the right side of the rectangle. Create the opacity keyframe and reduce the opacity to 0%. Move forward a few frames and set the opacity back to 100%. Go back to the first keyframe, create a scale keyframe and reduce the scale to 50%. Move 7 frames forward and reduce the scale to 100%. Paste the expression on the scale and set the AMP to 0.1. Add a glow effect. Change the glow colors to AB colors. Sample the color A from the left side of the rectangle and color B from the right side. Increase the glow radius to 35. Open the graph editor for the circles and keyframes. Change the curves to easy ease. Move forward slightly and increase the end value by quarter rotation 90 degrees. Copy the keyframe, move it a bit forward and paste it. Move forward slightly again and increase the end value by another quarter rotation. Repeat this process 2 more times, each time increased by quarter rotation.
To create uneven rounding effect,
Add a text layer and type "Creativity starts without rules."
center the anchor point.
Unlink the constraint properties and reduce the left side of the scale to 90%. Move the text to the left side of the composition. Go to the circle's last opacity keyframe. Trim and delete the text layer before that point. Add a gradient ramp to the text layer. Place the start point above the text and the end point below the text. Change the start point color to gray. Add the opacity animation via animation and click opacity. Set the opacity to 0% and create a start keyframe. Move forward and increase the start to 100%. Go back to the first keyframe, click add property and choose position. Move the text down and create a position keyframe. Move to the last keyframe and restore the position to the original. Under the advanced, change the mode to words. Shift the position keyframe further forward so the text appears to jump up from below. At the 5 frames into the layer, create a position keyframe, return to the start of the layer and move the text slightly downward. Paste the expression and set the AMP to 0.1. This adds a subtle bounce to the text. Move a bit forward from the end of the rounding animation. Create a scale keyframe for the filled circle. Move forward and scale it up until it covers the entire screen. Open the graph editor. Create a sharp easy in and move the keyframe backward to smooth the motion. Go back to the first scale keyframe, create the opacity keyframes for the V shape and the text, move forward slightly and reduce the opacity to 0%. Move a bit forward to the point where the screen is almost fully white, add a text and type "No limits, anything's possible" and center the anchor point. Scale the text to 125% and position it near to the center left to leave room for an exclamation mark. Trim and delete the part of the layer before this point. As the opacity animation, set opacity to 0%, create a start keyframe, move forward and set the opacity back to 100%. Go to the start, click add property and position. Move the text down and create a position keyframe. Go to the last keyframe and return the text position to 0. In the advanced, change the mode to words. Shift the position keyframe range slightly backward. Move 7 frames into the layer and create a position keyframe. Go back to the start and move the text down. Paste the expression on the position and set the AMP to 0.1. Add another text layer and type an exclamation mark. Center its anchor point. At the moment when the last word appears, reduce the scale of the exclamation mark to 50%. Create a scale keyframe. Trim and delete the part of the layer before this point. 7 frames later, scale the exclamation mark up to 175%. Create a rotation keyframe, go back to the start and rotate it to -30 degrees. Paste the expression on the scale and set the AMP to 0.1. Copy the same expression and paste it on rotation. At the start of the layer, create the opacity keyframe and set it to 0%. Go to the last scale keyframes and set the opacity back to 100%. Move the exclamation mark to the left and position it at the end of the sentence. Go to the last scale keyframe and increase it to 225%. Add a gradient ramp effect. Position the start point above the exclamation mark and the end point at the bottom of the exclamation mark. Using the eyedropper tool, sample the pink colors from the rectangle. Add a glow effect to the exclamation mark. Increase the glow treasure to 70% and glow radius to 130.
That's it for today's animation breakdown. I hope you learned something new and got inspired to create your own. If you found this helpful, make sure to like the video, subscribe for more advanced tutorials like this, and drop a comment if you have any question or idea for future videos. And don't forget, all the project files and assets are available in the description below, so you can download them and keep practicing. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.